we're gonna attempt to put some peel and stick wallpaper on this wall and then the wall that is up here on the cabinets. We've never done it before, but we're gonna go for it. We just got some cheap peel and stick wallpaper from Amazon. It's just white, so if it's too stark white, we'll figure it out. If we can't really get it up, we'll figure it out, but we figured why not try it and see how it goes.
We are definitely not wallpapering experts, but I'm going to share with you the steps we took to put up our wallpaper. First, you'll want to remove any hardware. We removed these hooks and a command strip clip I had added to the wall. Next, clean the surface. We just used our natural-based multi-purpose cleaner. Lastly, tape the walls around the area you are wallpapering. Because the walls are aluminum, we wanted to make sure we didn't accidentally scratch them. Alright, from here we obviously jumped to the wallpaper already being on the wall, and that's because it was tough, even with two people, to film ourselves trying to figure this out. Basically, I threw the wallpaper up to see how long I needed to cut it. I then cut it and peeled a little bit of the back off to stick it to the top. From there, I used a little squeegee tool for my silhouette cutter days to stick the wallpaper on little by little while simultaneously pulling the backing off as I went.
Yeah, I mean, we lose $7 or whatever, however much it was.
For practice. Practicing with cheap wallpaper.
We went ahead and used a box cutter to cut off the excess here. Tanner put on a headlamp so he could see a little bit better. Adding the second piece was a little tricky because we had to perfectly line it up next to the other one, and I think this would be easier if the wallpaper had a pattern to it, but since it's plain white and the wall behind it is bright red, it was really tough to line up.
What's the verdict?
That we are hikers and we can help you find good hiking trails. We can help you with your RV, like just RVing in general. Putting up wallpaper in RVs though, that's not us.
On camera it's like, oh dang, they did so good. But up close it's like terrible. There's like this came off the roll like that with a weird ripple, and then we couldn't get this bubble out.
There's
But
like creases.
yeah, there's a couple creases here, a couple
not
creases
bad.
there. It's not bad. I mean, $7 wallpaper. These are the holes where the hangers were, so we'll put those back up. Practice. Anybody else wants to put the rest of it up, come on over.
All right, we had got that section done. We're gonna take a break and do the other section behind us another day because that was a lot.
Yeah, we're not wallpaper people.
It's not perfect, but it looks pretty good for what it is. I'm glad we didn't spend $100. Like, I wanted some spoon flower stuff and it was gonna be like $200. So I'm glad that I went the cheap route and we got to practice.
We practiced, so
Yeah.
next time we know what we can do better versus wasting.
$200 wallpaper.
Yeah.
So we will come back tomorrow with the back part. We're back after a break. Day 2 of trying to wallpaper this section in the kitchen. Tanner's putting up the blue tape.
Yeah, we put the blue tape up because it kind of helps keep the silver from scratching. It's wallpaper, it's soft, but I mean, just precaution every time.
Alright, command strips are an RVer's best friend. This is how we have everything stuck up in the RV. People always ask how we do it. It's literally command strips, command Velcro, command hooks. That's all we use in the Airstream.
Wash up, wash up, wash up, wash up, wash up, wash up.
Alright, so we have no idea what we're doing. I cut it to go around this curve here, but I cut it too short. So Now we're just trying to figure out how we can do it. There's not really a way to like say, this is how you put up the wallpaper, especially with cabinets that are round and walls that are round. You just kind of have to figure it out.
Winging it. Yeah, it's like...
All right, this part was a little tricky. I ended up using a credit card to slide underneath this trim here and kind of push this wallpaper underneath it, and then cut the back side of it. So now I'm gonna start sticking it and peeling it and going all the way down. Hopefully it works. All right, this would be much easier if this wasn't here, but we're gonna work around it. And I somehow ended up shoving the wallpaper behind. There's a gap here, which I guess ended up being a good thing. So now I'm gonna try to keep rolling all the way down. When I cut it earlier, I cut it off. So I am going to have to add like a little piece down to the bottom, but since it's at the bottom, hopefully no one sees it. And at least this will be like one long seamless section. Tanner went ahead and took the door off of that little cabinet there, which is like 3 inches deep. It's not really a cabinet.
It's a cutting board cabinet.
So we got this section finished. It was really tough. Tanner was like, well, we'll cut it right here and then have another piece, but I figured I could try to see if I could get it all one seamless piece, and it worked. It was really rough. Don't look at it closely. But this section is up. I have to go to work today, so we're gonna come back to do the next section because I also have to eat. So we'll see you again to finish the wall. Day 3 of wallpapering these tiny sections in the Airstream. So it's taken us 3 days because we've been squeezing in this project in between other stuff that we needed to get done. But today I'm finally going to finish it. The only section I have left is this section here. I'm going to be doing it by myself. Tanner is at work. As for the wallpaper and how it's turning out, I think it looks good. There's a couple places obviously where there's bubbles or it's stretched out a little bit. Putting it around the curves has been super hard. Again, I bought really cheap wallpaper, white peel and stick wallpaper from Amazon just to see what it would look like in the Airstream and see if it was something we could do. It's looking really good, so I think I'm going to go ahead and start looking at different wallpapers to see if I can get something a little bit more fun to put up here. I just wanted to try it out with some cheap stuff first just to see if it was something we could even do.
The curvature of the Airstream walls definitely did not make this easy. I used some scissors to cut the wallpaper to an approximation of the wall. Here is where I start sticking the wallpaper to the wall. I started at the bottom because of the gap between the counter and the wall. I was able to tuck the wallpaper under the counter, which made it look more seamless. From here, I pulled a little of the backing away while I squeegeed up, making sure to go slowly to avoid any air bubbles or creases in the wallpaper. After finishing with the main wall, I went back and wallpapered the 2 small areas that were left. I used the same technique here by using the squeegee and the credit card. That way I could make sure that all of the air bubbles were out. The last thing I did was tuck the wallpaper under the trim, that way I didn't have to cut it. I lifted up the cream trim with my thumb and used a card to push the wallpaper underneath. This just made it look much more clean without having to cut it. I wasn't able to film myself cutting the excess wallpaper around the cabinet, but I was careful and used a steady hand with the box cutter knife. Lastly, I removed the blue tape and went back with the credit card to smooth out any remaining areas with bubbles.
All right, well, it is finished. I finally got the entire wall covered and that little section up there done as well. It definitely looks great from afar. I think it would hide the imperfections better if there was a pattern. Since it's just plain white, you can really see where there's bubbles, where I messed up with the corners and the creases. But overall, I think it looks good and it really brightens up the space. If you plan on doing this for your RV, I recommend a couple things like this tool. This I actually had from my Silhouette cutting days, my cutting machine. I used it for vinyl, but it's just a little tool where you can smooth out all of the wallpaper. You can use a credit card as well, something thin. You're also going to need an X-Acto knife. This is just a box cutter that we have that worked really well for the edges. I would make sure to put blue tape around the edges where you don't want to cut anything. So a box cutter knife or a X-Acto knife. I ended up using some tweezers, that way I could peel the backing off a little bit easier and kind of adjust some spots with the tweezers. But yeah, that's the products that I used to put up the wallpaper. Again, it wasn't the easiest project because of all of the curves, but I think it ended up looking really well and it brightens up the space.